Hi, welcome to Conflict Story, where we bring you the best and most fascinating stories just for you. Let's dive right into one of those stories. It begins like this.
Last summer, I found myself tangled in a nightmare that felt pulled straight from a homeowner's horror story. What started as a peaceful Saturday morning soon devolved into one of the most maddening and surreal experiences of my life, all thanks to a tyrannical homeowners association I didn't even belong to. My name is Ryan, and I'm a 28-year-old freelance graphic designer. 2 years ago, I purchased my first home, a charming two-bedroom craftsman-style house in a quiet neighborhood in Denver, Colorado. The house wasn't perfect, it needed some love, but it was mine, and I relished the opportunity to make it my own. Over time, I transformed the backyard into a small paradise, complete with a stone patio, a vegetable garden, and a custom-built water feature. It was my sanctuary. For over a year, life in my neighborhood was idyllic. My street was filled with friendly faces, a mix of retirees, young professionals like myself, and growing families. Next door lived the Millers, a delightful older couple who often stopped by with freshly baked bread or just to chat. Down the road, however, was a gated community called Maple Ridge Estates, a neighborhood of sprawling mansions and meticulously groomed lawns. Unlike my area, Maple Ridge operated under the governance of a strict homeowner association. I had little to do with that enclave and preferred to keep it that way. Unfortunately, it seemed the feeling wasn't mutual. One Saturday morning in June, I awoke to aggressive knocking on my front door. Rubbing the sleep from my eyes, I stumbled to the door and was met by three men in Navy uniforms labeled Maple Ridge Security. They looked imposing, with matching sunglasses, earpieces, and an air of unwarranted authority. Before I could fully register what was happening, the man in the middle, a tall, bald figure with a clipboard, spoke sharply. "Sir, we've received multiple complaints regarding this property violating Maple Ridge Homeowner Association standards. We're here to inspect and address these issues immediately." I blinked at him, completely baffled. "There's been a mistake. I don't live in Maple Ridge, and I'm not part of your homeowner association." The man's expression didn't waver. "Your property falls under Maple Ridge jurisdiction. We're authorized to enforce compliance." Anger and disbelief surged through me. "This is private property. You have no right to be here. Leave now, or I'll call the police." The guards exchanged glances before the leader replied coldly, "Failure to cooperate will be noted in our report. This is your final warning." When I moved to close the door, one of them blocked it with his boot. Without another word, the trio forced their way into my home, shoving me aside. I stumbled back, hitting the corner of a table. The pain was sharp, but adrenaline quickly took over as I watched them begin rifling through my belongings, opening drawers, flipping cushions, and even rummaging through my kitchen cabinets. "What are you doing?" I shouted, my voice shaking. "Get out of my house." The leader responded curtly, conducting a thorough inspection for violations of homeowner association bylaws. Grabbing my phone, I frantically called 911. "Please help. There are men in my house claiming to be homeowner association security. They've forced their way in and are going through my things. They're huge and I'm scared." The dispatcher reassured me that officers were en route. Meanwhile, one of the guards emerged from my bedroom holding a bottle of prescription medication. "Possession of unauthorized substances. This will be confiscated," he announced, slipping the bottle into his pocket. Another guard carried out my laptop, declaring it an unregistered electronic device. My outrage boiled over. "That's theft. You can't take my things." The leader smirked. "We have authority here. Non-compliance only escalates consequences." The sound of approaching sirens brought a momentary sense of relief. Two uniformed police officers entered my torn-apart home, their eyes widening at the scene. "What's going on here?" one officer asked. I hurriedly explained the situation, detailing how the men had broken in and were claiming homeowner association jurisdiction. The guards countered with claims of lawful enforcement, but the officers quickly called their bluff. After verifying my address and ownership, they confirmed my property wasn't under Maple Ridge's homeowner association jurisdiction. "You had no right to be here," one officer said sternly to the guards. "You're under arrest for trespassing, breaking and entering, and theft." As the guards were handcuffed and let out, their leader glared at me. "This isn't over. The homeowner association will hear about your defiance." Exhausted and shaken, I surveyed the damage they'd caused. My home was in disarray, and my sense of safety was shattered. Over the next few hours, I documented everything: broken items, missing belongings, and even my backyard koi pond, which they'd inexplicably drained. By the end of the day, anger had replaced fear. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. The following Monday, I contacted a local attorney who specialized in homeowner disputes and property law. Her name was Sandra Hart, a sharp, no-nonsense woman with a reputation for taking on overbearing homeowner associations. After listening to my account of what had happened, she was appalled. "This is one of the most blatant cases of overreach I've seen," Sandra said. "The fact that you're not even part of their homeowner association makes it even worse. We'll pursue this aggressively." Sandra immediately filed a police report on my behalf, supplemented by the one the responding officers had already submitted. She also began the process of drafting a lawsuit against Maple Ridge Estates and their security company. As we worked to build my case, Sandra instructed me to avoid any direct contact with the homeowner association or its representatives. Over the next few days, I busied myself cleaning up the wreckage left by the so-called inspection. My kitchen drawers were still in disarray, personal items had been damaged or stolen, and my koi pond had to be refilled and treated to save the surviving fish. It felt like my sanctuary had been violated, and my frustration only grew as I tallied up the costs of repairs and replacements. Meanwhile, word of the incident spread quickly through the neighborhood. My next-door neighbors, the Millers, were particularly outraged. "We saw them forcing their way in," Mr. Miller said. "I'd never seen anything like it. They had no right to do that to you." Mrs. Miller chimed in. "If there's anything we can do to help, just let us know. Those people have been throwing their weight around for years, and it's about time someone stood up to them." Support from my neighbors was heartening. Several others stopped by to offer their sympathy, share their own negative experiences with Maple Ridge's homeowner association, and even provide statements from my lawyer. One neighbor, a retired police officer named Joe, offered invaluable insight. "I've dealt with homeowner associations before in my line of work," Joe said. "They love to push their boundaries, but what they did to you goes beyond anything I've seen. Make sure your lawyer nails them to the wall." Sandra was relentless in gathering evidence. She subpoenaed security footage from Maple Ridge Estates, records from their homeowner association meetings, and the employment history of the guards involved. The footage revealed the guards arriving at my home that day, forcing their way in and carrying items out of my house. It was damning evidence. 3 weeks later, we had our first court hearing. The homeowner association's lawyer argued that there had been a clerical error, claiming my address had been mistakenly listed under their jurisdiction. However, Sandra countered that even if that were true, it didn't justify their aggressive actions. The judge agreed, stating that the guards had no legal authority to enter my property. In the meantime, my lawyer filed additional charges of trespassing, theft, and destruction of property. The court set a date for a full trial, but it was clear the homeowner association was already on the defensive. To make matters worse for them, local media picked up the story. A headline in the Denver Chronicle read, "Homeowner harassed by rogue homeowner association," and the accompanying article detailed the outrageous behavior of Maple Ridge's security team. The homeowner association's reputation began to crumble under public scrutiny. Despite the progress in my case, I couldn't shake the anxiety that had taken root since the incident. Every knock at the door made my heart race, and I installed additional locks and cameras around my property for peace of mind. Nights were the worst. I'd wake up at the slightest noise, half expecting someone to break in again. I began seeing a therapist to help manage the lingering fear and anger. A few days after the article was published, I received an email from the Maple Ridge Homeowner Association Board. They requested a private meeting to discuss a resolution. Against my lawyer's advice, I decided to hear them out, provided Sandra accompanied me. The meeting took place in a sterile conference room at their gated community's clubhouse. Sitting across from me were 3 members of the board, including their president, a man named Richard Collins. He was tall, silver-haired, and spoke with the clipped tone of someone used to getting his way. "Mr. Ryan," Collins began, "we want to extend our sincerest apologies for what occurred. The actions of our security team were inexcusable, and I assure you, steps are being taken to prevent anything like this from happening again." Sandra raised an eyebrow. "Steps like what? Dismissing the guards who violated my client's home? Or perhaps a formal acknowledgement that Maple Ridge has no jurisdiction over his property?" Collins shifted uncomfortably. "We're willing to offer a settlement to cover damages and put this matter behind us." Their offer was laughable. The sum barely covered the cost of repairs, let alone the stolen items, legal fees, and emotional toll. Sandra didn't mince words. This amount is an insult. Given the severity of your overreach and the publicity surrounding this case, I'd suggest you reconsider. Otherwise, we'll see you in court. Colin's face hardened. We have no desire for prolonged litigation, but neither do we admit to any wrongdoing beyond a clerical error. Let's remain reasonable. Sandra's tone was icy. What's unreasonable is your attempt to minimize what my client endured. You'll be hearing from us. As we left the meeting, Sandra turned to me. They're scared, Ryan, and they should be. We've got them cornered. The fight was far from over, but for the first time since that fateful Saturday, I felt like justice might actually be within reach. Over the following weeks, the pressure on Maple Ridge Estates continued to mount. Local news outlets regularly featured updates on my case, and public opinion swiftly turned against the homeowner association. Residents of Maple Ridge began to voice their own frustrations with the board, some even reaching out to me directly to express their support and share stories of their own mistreatment. It became clear that my experience was not an isolated incident. My lawyer, Sandra, used this to our advantage, gathering affidavits from other homeowners who had suffered under the homeowner association's heavy-handed tactics. The mounting evidence painted a picture of an organization that routinely overstepped its bounds, weaponizing its authority to intimidate and control. This information proved invaluable as we prepared for trial. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding my life. My koi pond was finally back to its original state, and my garden was beginning to flourish again. Still, the emotional scars from the invasion lingered. Nights remained restless, and I often caught myself double-checking the locks before going to bed. My neighbors, especially the Millers, continued to provide much-needed support, inviting me over for dinners and checking in regularly. One afternoon, while tending to my garden, I received an unexpected visitor. A middle-aged woman in business attire approached my gate, her expression a mix of embarrassment and determination. She introduced herself as Linda Dawson, one of the newer members of the Maple Ridge Homeowner Association Board. "Mr. Ryan, I know you've been through a lot," she began hesitantly. "I'm here on my own behalf, not as a representative of the board. I wanted to personally apologize for what happened and let you know that not everyone on the board supports the actions taken that day." Her sincerity caught me off guard. "Thank you for saying that," I replied cautiously, "but words don't undo the damage they caused." "I understand," Linda said. "I joined the board hoping to make positive changes, but it's been an uphill battle. People like Richard Collins have too much sway, and anyone who questions him is quickly silenced." Her admission surprised me. "Then why stay?" I asked. She sighed. "Because if people like me leave, nothing will ever change. I want to make things right, but I need help. People in the community respect you now, Ryan. They're rallying behind you. If we work together, we can force the board to reform or even remove the bad actors altogether." I appreciated her candor, but I wasn't sure I was ready to get involved. "I'll think about it," I said finally. Over the next few days, I mulled over Linda's words. It was tempting to stay on the sidelines and let the legal process run its course, but a part of me recognized the opportunity to effect lasting change. I reached out to Sandra for her opinion. "It's a risky move, or not," she said. "Working with someone on the inside could give us leverage, but it also opens you up to potential manipulation. If you decide to do this, proceed with caution." In the end, I agreed to meet with Linda again. We sat down over coffee at a local cafe, where she laid out her vision for a reformed homeowner association. Her plan included restructuring the board to ensure fair representation, implementing transparency measures, and creating a clear system for resolving disputes without intimidation. It was ambitious, but it gave me hope that change was possible. As we worked together, the trial date loomed closer. The homeowner association's legal team tried multiple times to negotiate a settlement, each offer more substantial than the last. However, Sandra and I held firm, knowing the trial could set a powerful precedent. The courtroom was packed on the first day of the trial. Journalists, neighbors, and even Maple Ridge residents filled the seats, eager to see how it would unfold. Sandra delivered a compelling opening statement detailing the events of that fateful day and the long-standing pattern of abuse by the homeowner association. The evidence she presented, security footage, testimonies, and a detailed breakdown of the damages, left little room for doubt. When the homeowner association's attorney took the floor, they focused on framing the incident as a misunderstanding, blaming the guards for exceeding their instructions. It was a weak argument that didn't hold up under scrutiny. The guards themselves, now facing criminal charges, testified that they had acted under direct orders from Richard Collins. This revelation was the nail in the coffin for the defense. As the trial progressed, it became clear that the homeowner association's leadership was in disarray. Collins, once confident and domineering, now appeared flustered and defensive on the stand. His attempts to justify the homeowner association's actions only further highlighted their recklessness and disregard for basic rights. After 2 grueling weeks, the jury delivered its verdict. The homeowner association was found liable for trespassing, theft, and property damage, with punitive damages totaling over $750,000. The decision was a resounding victory, not just for me, but for every homeowner who had ever been bullied by an overreaching homeowner association. As reporters swarmed the courthouse steps, I gave a brief statement. This case wasn't just about what happened to me. It's about standing up to organizations that think they're above the law. I hope this sends a message that no one is untouchable. That evening, I returned home to find a small crowd of neighbors gathered in my yard, cheering and clapping. The Millers handed me a homemade cake with "Justice Served" written in frosting, and for the first time in months, I felt a genuine sense of peace. In the weeks following the trial, life in my neighborhood took on a distinctly different tone. The ripple effects of the homeowner association's defeat were undeniable. Richard Collins resigned from the board in disgrace, and several other members followed suit. Maple Ridge Estates held a special election to fill the vacancies, ushering in a new wave of leadership intent on repairing the homeowner association's tarnished reputation. As for me, I was slowly reclaiming my sense of normalcy. With the settlement money, I repaired and upgraded every corner of my home that had been damaged during the invasion. My koi pond now featured a cascading waterfall, and my garden bloomed brighter than ever. A new security system, complete with motion detectors and cameras, gave me much-needed peace of mind. Linda Dawson, the board member who had approached me earlier, stayed true to her word. She spearheaded efforts to reform the homeowner association, starting with the introduction of transparency measures and a comprehensive review of the association's rules. She frequently updated me on their progress, and while I had no desire to be part of their community, I was glad to see genuine change taking root. One evening, Linda called with an unexpected proposal. "Ryan, the new board is planning a community outreach event to mend fences with the neighborhood. We'd love for you to attend and share your experience. Not just what went wrong, but how we've made things right." I hesitated. The idea of standing in front of a crowd, particularly one that included members of the homeowner association, was daunting. But after some thought, I agreed. It felt like an opportunity to reinforce the lessons of accountability and cooperation. The event was held in a local park on a sunny Saturday afternoon. Tables were set up with food and drinks, kids played on the grass, and neighbors mingled. When it was my turn to speak, I took a deep breath and stepped up to the microphone. "A year ago, I never imagined I'd be standing here," I began. "What happened to me was a violation of my rights, my home, and my sense of security. But it also brought to light issues that had been brewing for years. Today, I see a community that's willing to acknowledge those mistakes and take steps toward a better future. That's something worth celebrating." The crowd applauded, and for the first time, I felt a sense of closure. The incident that had upended my life was no longer a source of anger, but a catalyst for change. Over the next few months, the reforms within Maple Ridge Estates continued to gain traction. The Homeowner Association introduced a community council that included representatives from neighboring areas like mine, ensuring everyone had a voice. Dispute resolution processes were overhauled to emphasize dialogue and mediation, and the security team was replaced with trained personnel who understood the limits of their authority. As for me, life moved forward in the best possible way. The settlement allowed me to focus on my freelance design business without financial stress. I became more involved in my neighborhood, organizing events like garden tours and block parties. My relationship with the Millers grew even closer, and their granddaughter Megan became a regular visitor, and eventually much more than that. One evening, as the sun set over my garden, Megan and I sat by the koi pond, watching the fish glide through the water. The tranquility of the moment felt worlds away from the chaos of a year ago. "You've built something incredible here," Megan said, resting her head on my shoulder. "It's hard to believe everything that happened." I smiled. "If I've learned anything, it's that even the worst experiences can lead to something good. You just have to be willing to fight for it. Looking back, the ordeal with the homeowner association taught me lessons I never expected to learn. It reinforced the importance of standing up for what's right, knowing your rights, and fostering community support. My story became a cautionary tale, but also a source of hope for others facing similar struggles. I even began speaking at homeowner rights workshops, sharing my experience to help others navigate their own challenges. Every now and then, I'd see Linda at neighborhood events, and we'd exchange updates. "You've left a lasting mark on this community, Ryan," she said at one such gathering. "People respect you for standing up when it mattered most." While I'll never forget the fear and anger of that Saturday morning, I've chosen to focus on the positive outcomes. My home, my sanctuary, is more beautiful and secure than ever. My neighborhood is stronger, more connected, and more resilient. And I've found a deeper sense of purpose in helping others stand up against injustice. As the years pass, the koi pond remains my favorite place to reflect. Its calm, steady flow reminds me that even after the storm, peace can be restored. Life isn't about avoiding conflict, but learning how to navigate it and come out stronger on the other side. Are you hungry for more slices of stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss out on any videos. See you tomorrow.